Welcome to another best wildcard team video ahead of Game Week 4. There's going to be a few changes from the last one in Game Week 3. And just a bit of a disclaimer, the ranks and the points that you see on the left-hand side are before the Liverpool versus Man United game. So if it goes ahead, then it will obviously change. But don't worry too much about that. You'll get all the latest kind of updates in the team selection video. So be sure to check that out as well. And also the transfer tips video that I've uploaded recently. But without further ado, let's jump straight into this one. And I appreciate your support. I've changed the goalkeeper somewhat, so Ward remains the same. I don't trust Leicester, but he's a 4 million goalkeeper that's starting games. You can't ask for much more, so he's going to sit on your bench. We've gone for Robert Sanchez, who for me is the best 4.5 million goalkeeper. As I said last week, you could go for him, Ramsdale, Pope, or Edison. I think those are probably the four best at the moment. Now, Ramsdale isn't making that many saves, and I've got him in my current team, and he's also looking a bit shaky, so he's the kind of weak link at the moment in the Arsenal backline, but I'm sure he can start to step things up and show what he can do as he did last season. But as for Robert Sanchez, he's looking very impressive, making some very good saves, getting bonus points, and also those save points, and I think that makes him even better of an option than he was last season, and Brighton are coping very well with the departures of Marc Cucurella and Bissouma. It's as if they never left because they're doing even better now. They've got 7 points in the Premier League table. They're right up there and they're playing some great football. And Robert Sanchez for me is probably the best value for money amongst the goalkeepers at the moment. That could change, of course, but the fixtures coming up are great and I trust Brighton to get some clean sheets and Robert Sanchez to get some points. We've also made some changes in the backline. So Cancelo, Trent and James remain the same, but we've also brought in Saliba and Ivan Perisic. Now, you could argue that it's maybe a bit reactionary due to their massive hauls in Game Week 3, but Saliba for me is one of the very best around 4.5 million. And if you don't have the money, by the way, for this, because this team will cost, I think, 100.4 million in total, you could go to Ben White as well. And I think in terms of goal threat, Saliba is still quite level with Ben White. I don't expect too many goals or assists from them this season, although I think Saliba could pick up his goal output with the headers from set pieces because he's such a presence in the air, but he's only got 2 career goals at club level so far, so bear that in mind. And Reece James is still a great option. I'm seeing a lot of people doubt him now because he's playing as a right centre-back and Chelsea are looking awful, but Reece James is still one of the very best FPL options for me, and I wouldn't be looking to sell him just because of one bad result against Leeds United. As for Ivan Perisic, I think he was very lucky to get that huge haul, and I would have said the same thing, trust me, if I got him into my team, which I was very close to doing in Game Week 3. But that's what Perisic can do with his quality. And Spurs were very lucky to keep a clean sheet, but they still did it because they're able to grind out these results, especially under Antonio Conte, and that makes Perisic a very enticing option. My only concern with him is the minutes, so once the Champions League comes around the corner in 2 weeks, that's when Perisic could start to drop to the bench or have his minutes reduced even further. But for the time being, I think he'll play the vast majority of games, start them, and get those points for you. And also the fixtures turn very soon for Spurs, so watch out for that. But Spurs can still grind out results against the bigger teams, as they demonstrated last season. Trent and Cancelo speak for themselves. I'm seeing people also doubt Cancelo because he got 0 points and he keeps on getting these yellow cards. I would still keep him. He's a fabulous option, and I think he is one of the very best, if not the best, in the defender position alongside Trent Alexander-Arnold. I also am a bit reluctant to sell Robertson on this wild card because I could see a huge haul against Bournemouth, but when you're looking at a long-term structure for the wild card, I think this looks pretty good. You invest less money in the defence, and that allows you to have an even stronger midfield, which is very imperative at the moment with all the options we have suddenly between 5.5 and 8 million, which is great to see. You still cover 4 or 5 of the best clubs in the country at the moment, and it also gives you a good platform to suddenly rotate, change formations, 5-4-1, 5-3-2, 4-4-2, whatever you want to do, depending on the week, the fixtures, the form, and all these different factors. You've got the squad depth, but it's also not too much, and the kind of selection headaches won't be kind of overwhelming for you, and that's also another potential problem with having too much squad depth. In the last best wildcard team video, I showed you a draft where you had De Bruyne alongside Mohamed Salah, and you could do that as well and sacrifice the kind of premium forward and go for someone like Ivan Toney instead. So it all depends on your preference. Let me know which one you prefer, having De Bruyne and Salah or maybe Salah and Haaland. And we're going to talk about Haaland later on due to some comments made by Pep Guardiola, but Salah for me is still one of the very best options in the game. Let's see how he performs against Man United and how Liverpool are in general. They're struggling at the moment with all these injuries in the midfield and the defence, but I still think they could sort things out. Of course, Nunez is also suspended. Zaha, for me, is one of the very best options at 7 million and below, arguably the best. And if you have the funds, instead of him, you could go for Ilkay Gundogan. So you suddenly have a lot of options in the kind of midfield position. James Maddison's another one that I really like, despite the tough fixtures in the next 5 game weeks. Martinelli, for me, is the best around 6 million, despite the fact that that Rodrigo is the highest scoring player in the game, and he's got the most goals of any Premier League player with 4. And this is a really good midfield structure. Maybe it's something that I wouldn't have anticipated in pre-season, but these options can rise to the surface and pop about, and maybe some will fade away with time. But I think at the moment, considering the form and the fixtures, especially for Leeds and Rodrigo, I think this is a great structure, and you have a much better midfield compared to Bailey and Neto instead of Zaha and Rodrigo, which is definitely a huge downgrade. Andres Pereira for me is the best 4.5 million midfielder, although Josh Da Silva is still right up there around that price point, but he's 4.6 million. So I'd rather have Andres Pereira right now, and I think this is a great structure. But once again, it all depends on your preference. You could go for De Bruyne instead of Zaha, for example, and then go for a cheaper striker instead of Erling Haaland or Harry Kane, depending on your preference. We have completed the front line with Gabriel Jesus, Erling Haaland, and a 4.5 million striker, Stansfield, who got 76 minutes in Game Week 3. So I think he's probably the most viable 4.5 million option, but he's just going to sit on your bench anyway. So don't worry too much about that. You could go for Greenwood as well. I don't think there's a huge difference, apart from maybe the ownership and the likelihood of going down in price compared to Stansfield. If we check his ownership here, it's 1.7%. So I think he would be the pick of the bunch at the moment. But as for Erling Haaland and Gabriel Jesus, it's a bit difficult here. So I think Jesus is a great option with the fixtures, his form. Even against Bournemouth with only 1 assist, he still had a great all-round game and was given man of the match by Sky. But with Erling Haaland, I'm very concerned due to Pep Guardiola's comments. And it's not really something that's come out of the blue. It's something we have talked about in pre-season and also in Game Week 1 leading up to the build-up of the deadline. Following Man City's 3-3 draw away to Newcastle, Pep Guardiola said that Erling Haaland isn't going to play every single game, especially when there are matches every 3 or 4 days. And that is definitely not reassuring, especially after Erling Haaland has returned in every single game so far in the Premier League. So it's obviously a big shame, and it does boost the prospects of having Harry Kane instead, or investing that kind of premium slot in your midfield alongside Mohamed Salah. So you can have De Bruyne or Heung-min Son, with De Bruyne definitely being my preference at the moment. I'm probably the best premium in the game. So that's kind of where my head's at. I'm a bit unsure about going for Erling Haaland due to these comments. I think he'll continue to start for now, but once the Champions League comes around the corner, that's where Erling Haaland could be a big issue. And if you just want to save yourself a bit of hassle, you could just downgrade Erling Haaland. But if you were to go for him and this overall squad, it would cost you 100.8 million. So a bit of a correction to what I said earlier. So if you're not able to afford it, you can find some alternatives, such as Harry Kane instead of Erling Haaland. That saves you 0.2 million. You can go for White instead of Saliba, and there's a few other things you could do, such as a Newcastle defender, Trippier, Botman, or Fabian Schär instead of Ivan Perisic. There's a few things you could do. I wouldn't really go for Cucurella over Reece James personally, but that is another alternative if needs must. And there's also the possibility of going for Pascal Grosch instead of Rodrigo or Wilfried Zaha. So it's completely down to you and your preference. This doesn't mean you're guaranteed to get the most points of anyone and you're going to get a great rank, because a lot of people have good teams. And one thing I will say about the wildcard is that there are going to be some fixture swings later on in the season, and it could be a bit tricky to navigate away from that. So teams like Arsenal will start to have a bit of a tricky period, and you might not want to have triple Arsenal at that point. So you will have to use hits or free transfers to kind of solve the issues and fix your team for the future. And another thing is that there's a lot of kind of swings at the moment, and new players are popping about, and there's a lot of variance at the moment. So you could go to this team and it looks great on paper. You know, they're doing so well at this moment in time for the first 3 game weeks, but that could easily change. And there's a lot of unpredictability about the Premier League at the moment, and things can maybe go back to the status quo with Chelsea improving. You can see Man United maybe coming back, also Liverpool. Obviously, this is all hypothetical. We don't know. But with only 3 game weeks worth of data, I don't think you're going to make the most informed decisions and choices on the wild card. So let's wait and see on that one. Let me know your thoughts on this wildcard draft. And I have been considering using it, but I think as things stand, I'm going to hold off and maybe even roll the transfer this week. All of my players are playing at home. In terms of what I would do with this team for Game Week 4, I would start Robert Sanchez, of course. You could arguably start every single one of those defenders. If there was anyone I would consider benching, it could be Reece James, but even then, I think he could do something against the struggling Leicester side, whether it's from an offensive point of view or a clean sheet. He still has it in him, and you could even bench Saliba, who is at home to Fulham. I don't expect a clean sheet there for Arsenal, but the fixture still looks great on paper. I'm not going to lie to you. So I would probably start all 5 of those defenders, and you could even bench Zaha, but I have to say that does leave me uneasy. Despite the fact that he's facing Man City, I think with the form that Zaha is in, it's very difficult to bench him. I was asked a few questions last week about benching Rodrigo or maybe someone else like Andres Pereira, and I said bench Rodrigo. So even though Andres Pereira got the returns, Rodrigo did even better against Chelsea. So it just shows you that fixtures aren't everything. You also have to look at form, and things aren't as clear-cut as they may seem to be. But I would go for Sanchez in goal, all 5 defenders, Martinelli, Salah, and probably Rodrigo, despite the fact that he's facing a good Brighton side at the moment, and go for Jesus and Harry Kane up front. So a 5-3-2 this week. And in terms of the captain, I would go for Mohamed Salah. I'll be discussing that more in the team selection and explain why I'm going for the Egyptian. But thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, found it useful, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Let's get this video to over 200 likes and keep smashing the subscribe button. We're very close to 13,000 subscribers. We recently hit 12,000 and I very much appreciate your support, and we can keep on going and pushing to new goals and heights. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and you can also become a patron or a channel member. The links are in the description below, and you can also join the FPL League and the Discord server. So be sure to check all of that out. I wish you all the very best of luck for Game Week 4 and the rest of the FPL season, and I'll see you next time.